I have got a recommendation up there again that staff be asked to expedite the work on coastal erosion so that the implementation of the highest priority projects can start as soon as possible et al.
Perhaps don't let
Councillors,
Thank you. Good input, isn't it? Thank you.
as you're aware, and I proposed to you, we have a couple of extra matters. First of all, Auckland Transport have come to us and have indicated the need to respond to the extraordinary growth in the city at this point in time, that they need to be ahead of the game in terms of some of their property purchases. They asked for $80 million a project or property purchase fund, in effect, to sit there. They have given us a very clear view as to the properties that need to be purchased, and in light of the challenge for us to not be a handbrake on the Auckland economy, but to be very much working in beside our agencies and the private sector to ensure continuing pace and delivery of projects and growth, that we provide there a $30 million fund and then a $20 million in those 2 financial years. It does not provide for the ability for us to at this point in time invest in a light rail depot. My understanding is that doesn't compromise or won't compromise that potential purchase if in the end we as a council agree to urgency in the matter of light rail. It's not us, of course, who are in that debate alone. We're there with the government. We're awaiting the view of Auckland Transport before we formally debate that, and we're also awaiting the view of the NZTA. Lastly, funding for Town Centre Main Street makeovers or Town Centre cleanups. I am promoting and asking for support for $150,000 small fund to be allocated to Town Centre cleanups with $3,000 per Town Centre to leverage Town Centre cleanups right around our city, with 50 in the first year, to be managed, oversighted by our local boards and local organisations, is a worthy cause for us to contribute to, and again another way for us to indicate support for our community as a whole. So, councillors, quite a bit of meat on the bones there, but just going back to my original view to you, this budget is not a time for substantive change. It's time to take something of a deep breath, recognise that it has been one heck of a challenge over the last 6 years that we've arrived at a point of good budget setting and balance sheet setting for going forward, and then on that basis I encourage you to support my proposals.
Going to move it?
I'll move it.
I'll second it. Councillors, I know that I've got a load of amendments here. I think the best way to deal with this at this stage is if we can ask questions and get the questions out of the way first, and then we'll deal with the amendments in the order that the recommendations are. And then we'll have the debate.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
well, you're saying we'll have a debate, but I mean, we're then going to have a governing body meeting which will convene after this meeting. Is that the,
yep.
That's the situation? So, I mean, you're going to have these amendments in relation to what the Mayor has in his recommendations. I just wonder, I mean, and every time someone puts up a amendment, does that finish their speaking term?
No.
Or speaking rights?
No,
okay, well, how will we, I mean, I just wonder whether we're going to duplicate the overall speeches, and could we truncate the whole process if we had the amendments now and then had the speeches at the governing body?
We don't usually do it that way, Councillor Wood. I think what I'm suggesting is that we've heard from the Mayor, general questions at this stage, because there's a lot of other things other than the UAGC, transport levy, farm rates, Maori rates, etc., of those 4 major things. So I'm suggesting questions on other things in there, and then I'll take the amendments, because I've got UAGC amendments, I've got transport levy amendments, I've got weed and pest amendments, I've got Meadowbank Community Centre amendments, so I'm just suggesting that we do that in some sort of order.
It should only take half
so,
an hour.
no.
Once the amendments are finished, people can then put their hands up and
And
get a
then
speaking
we
turn
can
to
debate.
speak
Yes,
to the whole
yes.
thing.
There's certainly not suggesting. So when we actually get to the amendments, we put the amendments, we'll vote on them, and then we will have long speeches, I'm sure, on the general. Okay? So, questions to the Mayor, please. Councillor Quacks.
Well, actually, it's a question to you, just about process, Madam Chair. And so, look, first of all, I'd like to, actually, as part of my question, first of all, I'd like to preface this by saying that I want to congratulate the Mayor on many parts of this budget. And so I don't have a problem with a large number of the items that are in the budget. However, there are some things that I would like to see changed. Now, so when the recommendations come up for the vote, presumably we can vote against part of that budget that we don't at the moment like. We may like it after the amendments, perhaps. That's always a possibility. But then I guess that, and I suspect that the budget will be passed at this forum, and then we go to the governing body. That will be just straight out, the budget will be accepted.
Yeah. So my suggestion...
Right now we still have the opportunity
So
to
my
debate
suggestion...
and vote.
Yeah. So my suggestion, Councillor Quacks, is at both meetings, if you like, we pass the annual plan, but we can note various councillors' objections or voting against bits of it.
At both meetings.
So at both meetings. I think that's a much better pragmatic way of doing it than we vote against the whole thing when there's probably things in there that we quite like.
Yeah, there are.
Okay?
Yeah.
So, and that was, we did talk about that with the officers before, and we're happy with that. So does that answer your question,
Yes,
Councillor
it does.
Quacks? Right. Councillor Cooper.
Yeah, just a question, and I have given Kevin a heads up. We consulted on 397 for the UAGC, but it's 394 here. Can we just get an explanation for that?
Yeah, through the Chair, yes, it's 394. That is the final number based on the fact that the change is from the original proposal 3.2% increase down to a 2.4% increase.
Okay, thank
So
you.
it's now 394, yep.
Right, thanks. Thank you. Councillor Darby.
Yes, thank you. Just a question and another question on numbers. Thanks, Councillor Cooper. The ITL for business, I thought it was 182.85. Here it's 183.85.
I think we need the officers to come up so we can explain something.
I know it's a dollar, but it's a big dollar.
Yep.
The ITL presently for businesses 182.85.
So it should read, the recommendation should read 182.85. It reads 183.
Yes.
How did that happen? Can we change that? So it's 182.85.
It's good to see you're trying to save them some money, Councillor Darby.
That's good, Chris.
Business ratepayers are ratepayers. They're just ratepayers.
Exactly.
No, it's
Right,
182.
we'll
182 is correct.
Yep.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
Just
Thank
a
you.
question. Thank you. Second question is on the recommendations in our papers on Māori freehold land. Did we consult on the recommendation Roman numeral 4.4? Did we consult on that particular part? My recollection is that we workshopped this particular issue around commercial redress land, and the consultation documents did not consult on that. So I'm just wondering where that recommendation came from, but I could be wrong, so I'll hear from the staff.
So that recommendation came from comments made to us during the consultation process. While it's not one we consulted on formally, it's very closely related to those matters, and therefore we're comfortable that it's within the council's scope to add this to the decisions they make in regard to this proposal.
So just looking at the words, are the words correct there? Because I would look at a settlement where there was natural conservation, historic, cultural. Surely that would have been in the cultural redress category, not the commercial redress category. I'm quite confused by this, Madam Chair, because I thought we, as a whole, wanted to exclude, in our workshops at least, commercial redress land. I support the balance, but I have some concerns about the wording here. Now, I don't think that this has been well socialised amongst us. The other matters have been, and this is the first time. There's no further narrative in the document, I don't think, on this particular part. So I'm drawing this to the attention of councillors, and I'm willing to hear what others think, but I would prefer that wording to be more, instead of the word commercial, cultural. I thought that was the intention. I'm a bit in the dark on this one.
So can I just ask Andrew, and I'll come to John. Is this sort of a little bit like my favourite example, TRI, where they were actually given the land as a commercial redress, but actually hardly any of the land can be used for commercial, it's now parkland? Would that be a sort of an example?
The example in our report refers to the Woodhill State Forest, which is returned as commercial redress, but there are parts within there that are used for marae or urupa, so it would allow us to address those small components of the land and treat them for rating purposes equivalently to similar things elsewhere in the region. So it's a small amendment to address a couple of minor anomalies. But only a small amendment, only a small change.
So we haven't canvassed this. We haven't canvassed this particular aspect, and here we are making a decision on it. So is the non-rateability transferable? It's a commercial asset, remember, and commercial assets can easily be transferred. So is the non-rateability transferable?
I think
it's a remission, not a non-rateability. And the land, it would only be a portion of the land that would have any remission of the rates. So the 12,500 hectares in Woodhill State Forest referred to in the reports would be paying rates as forestry, but we would remit the rates on the small parts of that area that are used for urupa,
where they've set it aside.
Where they've set it aside and it's protected. So they will be, so an urupa there will be treated the same way as one somewhere else, but it would only be that small component, not the wider bits. And because it's a remission, not a non-rateable, if the status changed, it would go back to being rated.
Okay, got that. Thank you. So, well, look, I'll leave that for debate, but I've got two other areas I'd like to just ask questions on. Thanks, Chair. One is on the DFA. We've had a number of workshops, meetings on the DFA. We've got further work coming in. The DFA is, in colloquial language, referred to as the Rainy Day Fund, and we now know what that Rainy Day Fund can be used for. In fact, Dunedin had massive floods last year that initially were costed at 30 million. They've just been costed at 138 million. Now, that's what that fund is for, the rainy day. In their case, it was a real rainy day. Wellington experienced similar things last week. What I'm not convinced of here, before we delve into this, is we looked at how well insured we are, and then we talked about creating a captive insurer scheme. I want to have some absolute confidence that we have got balance in this fund to capitalise a captive insurer entity. Do we have that?
So, through the Chair, the finance team with the insurance folk considering this matter at the moment, we're completely comfortable, confident that the recommendation that would potentially see the CFO releasing up to 200 million of the fund over the next 2 years is consistent with leaving us with plenty of flexibility to set up a captive fund of sufficient size for us to have an appropriate self-insurance strategy with other reinsurance premiums attached.
That would give us the same protection as that capital fund. or similar?
Well, it'll give you a hell of a lot more.
Okay.
So I think we need to be careful when you talk about this as a rainy day fund. It's not an insurance fund. So the reality of the sorts of events you're talking about will have price tags in the billions, not the tens of millions. So just perhaps the language is slightly unfortunate, but formally within our documentation throughout council, the reference to rainy day and within the Treasury management policies refers to liquidity events, where financial market conditions, operating budget issues can just give rise to near-term need for cash. So rainy day was really used in that sense rather than wholesale insurance cover.
Okay, I'm satisfied with that. Just the last